Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my kitchen. It is Saturday morning for me, and Saturday morning in my life means that it's pancake day. So I'm going to show you how I make buttermilk pancakes at home. I already, as you can see in the back, have my two skillets heating up here. In one of these skillets, I am going to put my butter. Here is a look at all of the things that we will be needing today, okay? So I have my mixer. My recipe is on my phone right there. We have eggs, baking powder, salt, baking soda, vanilla, buttermilk, flour, sugar, and butter. We also have our mixing utensils ready. So we have our measuring spoons, and our measuring cups. We also have a liquid measuring cup because the way that you measure liquid and dry ingredients is different. Got a couple of bowls here. And last but not least, I do need my handy dandy rubber spatula. So I just finished washing my hands and cleaning off my countertop here, so we're gonna get going. First thing I need to do though is I need to get my butter and I need to put it into these pans that are heating up so that it can melt so I can incorporate it into my batter. So I'm going to take my butter, and luckily it has these lines on the side that tell me how much it is. And I am going to use a tablespoon and a half of butter. That was a tablespoon and a half of butter in one of my pans so that it can melt. And it's doing two things for me. I'm going to put it into the batter, and it is also greasing the pan so that it's ready for me to cook. So we're going to set that aside. Now, I'm going to start with my dry ingredients. That's just the way that I do it. I've got several bowls, so I'm going to have one of these larger two bowls for my dry ingredients. And just so you know, I'm going to give you a full recipe. It is going to have enough food to feed about 4 people, but only 2 people live in my house right now. So I'm going to be cutting this recipe in half. So maybe some of you guys can help me with that. I'm going to tell you how much is in a full recipe, but I'm only going to do half of it. So maybe you guys can write in the comments what half of this would be. So to start out with, it calls for 2½ cups of flour. Again, I'm halving my recipe. This is a really great way for you to think about the importance of understanding your fractions in your daily life. I'm going to use my scraper here to measure off my flour, so that's one of those. And then I'm going to pull this one, and I want you guys to tell me in the comments, what size measuring cup is this if I'm halving 2½ cups of flour. So that's my flour done. I can put my lid on. Next, it calls for a cup of sugar. Now, you can use however much sugar you want. If I was doing half of a recipe, I want you to think about how much that would be. I'm not going to use that much sugar just because I don't like my pancakes super sweet. I like to use fruit on them to add the sweetness instead. So I'm using about 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm going to actually use a little bit less. I'm going to dump that in there. And then next, it calls for 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, we have 2 things here. We have baking soda and baking powder. Honestly, I always have to read the label before I pour. I can never remember which is which. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder. But since I'm halving the recipe, I'm only going to do 1. I don't want to be wasteful, especially right now, because it is such a hassle to go to the grocery store, putting on all of your masks and everything, washing your hands, cleaning and disinfecting everything. Our next thing it's calling for is 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So I'm not going to use a full teaspoon. I'm cutting it in half. There's that. And then that is all, and then a little pinch of sugar. Now, I can use my 1/4 teaspoon. That's an option. Or I like to cheat a little bit. This is something that my mom taught me. You pour just a little tiny bit of salt in your hand. You see how that's not a lot at all? You just need a little bit. It helps to activate the pancakes and make them nice and fluffy. So that's all done. I'm going to grab my whisk and I'm going to whisk together my dry ingredients. So you can see everything is nicely incorporated, all mixed up together, no lumps of baking powder anywhere, which doesn't taste very good. So there's that. Now I'm going to move on to my wet ingredients. I'm going to check my butter first just to make sure nothing's burning. Looks pretty melted. It's spreading out all over the pan. Now, when I was living at home with my family, I am one of 5 kids, so my mom would make a lot of pancakes on Saturday mornings, and she had a great big griddle that would plug into the wall. But I don't have that. I just have my little stove here, so I'm using 2 cast iron pans instead of a griddle. But if you have a griddle at home, you are more than welcome to do that. You're going to set your griddle to 350. That's what you're going to do. For these, just to melt the butter, I have it on pretty low, and then when I cook them, I'm going to move it up to what for me is between a 3 and a 4, so about a third of the way to the full heat. Okay, next we're going to do our wet ingredients. Excuse me. Now it is calling for a teaspoon of vanilla, 3 eggs, the butter, and buttermilk. Now what I'm going to do is, since I've already used my teaspoons for my dry ingredients, I don't mind using them for the wet afterwards, but if you start with the wet, then you need to clean your utensils before going to the dry ingredients. Otherwise, things get pretty sticky. So I'm putting in my vanilla. There's the vanilla. And then I need my eggs. Now for the eggs, you're going to do something a little bit different, okay? For the eggs, I'm going to get this little tiny bowl that I have, and I'm going to take, now it calls for 3 eggs, but I'm halving the recipe, but it's really challenging to do an egg and a half. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I know you can get out of scale and really work it out, but instead I just use 2 eggs, and it tastes great to me. So I'm going to crack my egg on a flat surface, okay? Because when you crack it on a surface like this, on a convex surface, you typically get more eggshell in. So here I've cracked my egg, and I'm only wanting to put my egg whites in this little bowl. I'm keeping the yolk, and then the yolk goes in the bowl with the wet ingredients, okay? So egg whites in one bowl, egg yolks in the other bowl. That's why I use the white bowl for the egg whites too. So cracking my egg on a flat surface, pulling it apart, and just getting the egg whites into the bowl. You can really carefully kind of move your shell around to pull all those egg whites. That goes in there. And then it also calls for 2 cups, of buttermilk, but I am only going to use half of that. This is my buttermilk. Shake it up before I open it. And so when you're pouring liquid, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get on eye level, okay, so that you can see exactly where it is. Because when you're higher up, you can't actually see what level your liquid's at. So that goes right in there. And I'm going to grab my handy dandy whisk and mix all of this together. It's going to turn a nice little pale yellow color. And now I am ready to incorporate my dry ingredients and my wet ingredients. So I'm just going to put these in slowly. Slowly. And I'm going to grab my spatula to mix it up a little bit while I'm incorporating. Okay. Mixing this up. Sometimes you might need either a little bit more or a little bit less buttermilk. So just keep an eye on that. If it seems really loose, you can add a little bit more flour. All
Alright, so we got a little interrupted there, but we're going to keep moving forward. So now that I've mixed in about half of my dry ingredients, I'm going to grab my butter that I've melted on the stove, and I'm going to pour that into my batter. And then I'm going to grab the rest of my my dry ingredients, and I'm just going to pour them on top. I'm going to let those sit there for just a moment, and I'm going to take my whisk and my egg whites, and I'm going to mix these up until they get white and fluffy. So I'm going to do that off camera so that you don't have to listen to it, but we'll see what happens when they come back. Okay, so I just finished whisking, and as you can see, right, this is stiff. If I hold it upside down, it doesn't move. Now, so when I talk about how you're going to mix your batter, you're going to want to practice folding it. Now, I've already sort of started folding, but for now, you're going to grab, I'm using a rubber spatula, and you're going to grab and lift over the top, all right? So as you can see, I'm not mixing it all up together because that would pop the bubbles. I want to make sure that the bubbles stay so that my pancakes remain light and airy and not super dense and rubbery. So this looks pretty well incorporated. You can see it's not fully incorporated, but that's just fine. It'll make this part just a little bit more fluffy. Now, the way that we're going to dump it into our pan, let's take you on a little journey over here. So I'm going to use today this 1/4 cup measure, and I've got my pans going. They are plenty hot. I've got some, I have them greased so nothing's going to stick. I'm just going to grab this 1/4 measure and plop. Okay. There you go. So it doesn't look beautiful, but it will taste just fine. So I just folded together my ingredients. Also, while your pancakes are cooking, this is a great time to take a stab at some of the dishes that you have made so that you don't have a big mess to clean up at the end. As you can see, I just finished my dishes, and now I'm going to go back and check on my pancakes. Do you start to see those bubbles forming? They look like they're starting to pop over here. So I'm going to take my spatula. I'm going to check to see if they are done. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. So I'm going to hold it, and I'm just going to flip it over. Sometimes it's a little bit more challenging, especially with one hand, but here we go. 1, 2, 3. Ta-da! So now we've got 2 pancakes. Let's check on these guys over here. These ones kind of came together a little bit, so I take my spatula and I just sort of push them apart. Oop, those look good too. 1, 2, 3. And let's do this one. So I bring it over towards where I want the edge of the pancake to be, and then I just flip it. Now, a key ingredient with pancakes is to make sure that you only flip them one time, okay? If you flip them more than that, they start to get kind of rubbery and not taste so nice. There we go. All of our pancakes are flipped. As you can see, there is still some more batter, but I think you get the idea. I will show you the final product in just a moment. My pancakes are just about done, so while they finish, I'm going to grab these beautiful blueberries that I have, and I am going to rinse them off so that we can have some blueberries and possibly these last few strawberries with our breakfast. Also, this is the way I store berries to make sure that they stay fresher longer. Just put a paper towel inside to soak up all the moisture so that mold doesn't grow. Just rinse them off. And let's check on our pancakes. They do not take very long to cook once they've been flipped over, so let's see. Oh, beautiful, all done. So we grab off our pancakes. Very nice little stack here. I'm just gonna grab a handful of these blueberries and 2 of the strawberries. Got a fork. And breakfast is served. All right. So I hope that you all enjoyed this pancake video. I'm really looking forward to seeing if any of you guys try it out. If you do try it out, please let me know. I think that this would especially be a really fun idea because I know that Sunday is Mother's Day and a lot of us are going to be celebrating that on Sunday. So if you want to try making this yummy breakfast for your mom, please go for it. There are a lot of different substitutions you can make, including different types of milk or different types of wheat, depending on what you and your family decide. All right, I will share the recipe in the comments, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you enjoy using Flipgrid as well. All right,